Mentioned this is one of our 2 tables of undefeated players.
Love to finish day 1 of the Invitational at 8-0. Pretty happy to finish at 7-1, but
yeah.
8-0 is very nice.
Absolutely a high-pressure match here to be on table 1 this late in the tournament.
Is that a Jace Bellerin hoodie?
And he's playing blue. All right, I like this. Yeah, it is.
I would hope for a fake out with that, but, you know, there's nothing wrong with staying on theme.
You got to put the hood up, though, right?
To really invoke the full Jace? Yeah. We'll see if he puts it up when the game starts.
Oh, that'd be so good. If your opponent's like, good luck, and then you flip up the hood and draw your opening 7.
Very into that.
Scry here from Johnston. Looks like he's on a mulligan. As is Jake. So, 6 cards apiece. What I would think in this early game, Jake's going to start off on Bomat Courier, is that James needs to make sure he would like to get a draw where he's not cold by Goblin Chain Whirler. One of the difficulties of the black-blue deck is that Champion of Wits and Glint Sleeve Siphoner can both be hit down. Yeah,
Siphoner, the big liability there. Champion, you know, it dies in a myriad of ways and you're usually fine with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting your Siphoner's not even good in the matchup if it lives.
Swing in for 3 on turn 2 from Jake. James has a Fatal Push, and we'll see which creature he pushes. And he goes for Bomat Courier. It was damage versus cards, and he's willing to take extra damage to deny cards from Jake.
In particular, in a game where your opponent mulligan, the Bomat Courier, it converts pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's not long before Jake's popping it.
Yep. Yes, I do like that tag there. Also, ideally, you deal with the Kenra in a way like Vraska's contempting it, where you exile it and don't have to worry about it later.
Like make a blocker for it.
Yeah.
Drowned Catacomb. See if James can get maybe one of those Glint gifted Aetherborns in play. He doesn't. It's going to be Glint Sleeve Siphoner, and here's our check on Chain Whirler.
Yes. If there isn't one, wouldn't be terribly just surprised to see this one immediately trade in any combat it's offered.
Yeah, taking 2 extra damage and then attacking, and then the following turn taking another damage, all for 1 card. I mean, I like Elvish Visionaries, but that's... And no, not going to pass the Chain Whirler test. Boom. Creature in the graveyard. Why'd you register X1s? GG. Swings for 2.
Powerful magic card.
Gosh.
Really elegant design.
It's so demoralizing. It's like, yeah, shouldn't have played X1s. Now I'm going to take 100 damage. Well, 5 more, down to 9.
Oh, yikes. No follow-up, no answers. This game looks to be over pretty quick.
Goblin Chain Whirler, man. What a card. Carry Zev the follow-up for Jake. And even if James has a Chupacabra here, which is a great play, I don't even know if that's enough. And he doesn't. He just passes.
Yeah, it only deals with one of the things.
Let's see whether Jake wants to try to finish it. He's got a Kenra in hand. And why not? Here's another one. This is a swing. If everything connects, this is a swing of 10.
And this is blue-black, not blue-white. What's the worst-case scenario?
Vraska's Contempt.
You can't be settled.
And
you already have 3 creatures. You can get contempted.
Jake has a shock, too. I don't know if James gets an untap.
I would imagine not. If he has a contempt, it depends on what he contempts. And yeah, he goes for a 3 toughness creature, which is actually relevant because Jake shocking his own Kenra in response would be a positive interaction. Keep that one in the graveyard.
Yeah, goes up to 11, gets rid of the carry Zev, but here's a swing for 7. James is down to 4. Okay, a shock in hand for Jake. We're alive, but I don't think any of this matters.
If you can call it living.
Yeah. James's hand is Swamp Aether Hub. There's one other card here, but I can't think of one. Fumigate. Fumigate is the card he needs to draw here.
Oh, another white card. Yeah.
That's the only card that can keep him alive, and it's hard to cast Fumigate in your black-blue mid-range deck. Game 1 goes to Jake Gray.
Gonti's Expertise.
Yahenni's.
That's
Gonti's
no
expert.
I always think of Gonti because Gonti is a good card and Yahenni's not a good card, so I think it's named after the one that's the good card.
Well, isn't it can't all the Expertises cast their namesake card? Like SRAM, you can SRAM Expertise into SRAM. Now you can Yahennies into Yahenni. You can Baral into Baral.
Okay, but whereas you couldn't Yahenni into Gonti.
You could Rishkar's expertise into Rishkar.
I wouldn't, but you can.
What's the? I'm missing one.
Baral.
Oh, no, the red. What's the steal? It steals your guy. It carries Zev's expertise. Yeah, you can carry Zev's. Yeah, they can all cast themselves.
Yes. Neat.
There we go. Now you'll never confuse him again.
I learned something today.
You can't. All right, guys. We'll be back with game number 2 in just a minute. Players getting ready for the second game here. Now, Ryan, James Johnston's deck's good in the matchup, but, well, as good as you can expect.
Scoreboard.
To be against, right? But his sideboard doesn't have much for the matchup because he's main decking most of the cards he'd like to see.
Yeah, you get to go heavy on fewer things. We go down, we have 4 negates, 2 Arguels, Bloodfast, cards that definitely don't play here. Right. And 2 Gifted Etherborn, a Cast Down, a Commit, a Duress, an Essence Scatter, a Ravenous Chupacabra, and a Sorceress Spyglass. Most of what we're doing is adding more copies of main deck cards to our deck.
It's like the last 2 Aetherborns.
Yep, the Cast Down plays pretty well here. Essence Scatter is your best answer to a Hazoret, so you like that one a good amount. I actually don't hate Commit in this matchup because I can deal with the stuff that's really hard to otherwise deal with. Hazoret, the primary offender there. Sorcerer's Spyglass is also pretty reasonable. Just turning off Chandra can be a big deal.
Yeah, I guess he's mostly just boarding out these Kite Sail freebooters and then replacing them with Aetherborns, Scatters, Chupacabra.
Yep, that all makes sense.
On Jake's side, there's some... I think it's tempting for him to go big in this matchup. I see Red do that in most matchups. Do you like it here?
Glorybringer is all right. The flying is nice, though your opponent's very likely to have a 1-for-1 answer for it. The turn it comes down, this Cast Down, Vraska's Contempt. You do put more pressure on the Contempts, which is all well and good. But the Chandra, I think, is the big draw for the matchup. Like, you definitely want to go heavy on Chandra. It's harder to answer than the rest of your cards. But Glorybringer is a fair amount worse.
Both players, again, mulliganing. This time they both keep on top. See how we go. James on the play. Jake Gray, one more win will send him to 8-0. Looks like he hasn't moved away too much from the small creatures. Here's Bomat Courier again, putting to 19 and grabbing a card.
Yeah, outside of the mono-red mirror, Bomat Courier is among the best cards in the deck.
Yeah.
Really hard to get away from that one.
Second land from James. And Jake's very heavy on lands here. You see mountains. He has lands 3 and 4 in hand. Soulscar, Mage, Earthshaker, Kenra. one other. He'll make Earthshaker Kenra here. See if that can bait a Essence Scatter. And swings both. We're going to see just like last game. Fatal Push again. James chooses the Bomat Courier.
Yep, that one can definitely get out of hand.
So far, it's the same script.
Which does not bode well for James.
No, it'd be Glintleaf Siphoner into Chain Whirler would be the next play. That's
Yeah.
Yep. He doesn't really want to run that
So
one
those
back.
are probably in the sideboard, so that's unlikely to be this turn.
I suppose, yeah, the Glintleafs. You think if he had to board out either Siphoner or Freebooter, you think the Freebooters are probably more likely to be in?
Yeah, I think that you very rarely want to draw an extra card with Siphoner. The second point of toughness can allow you to leverage Freebooter against a Bomat Courier, and sometimes you can just grab a Chandra.
Jake hits, follows up with just Soulscar Mage. We go back over to James, see if he can produce something. He actually went all the way through turn 3 without spending any mana. He does have a Chupacabra available now. So he makes land 4.
Chupacabra seems like a pretty solid play on this board.
Yeah, you'd like to hit something bigger, but I don't think you can be too picky about things.
Yeah. The reason you might not see him go for it, if you have a counterspell, you do want to leave this up. We're getting into Hazoret territory, we're getting into Chandra territory.
Yeah, here's Chupacabra. Now, interesting one, Ryan. James has a negate in his hand. Looks like he's boarded at least one of those in, and that's a little surprising to me here.
Yeah, it doesn't cover a lot. Basically, it is just Chandra. In particular, if you have your Sorceress Spyglass in your deck.
You'd rather have something you can play at any time?
Yeah, like that would cover the Chandras, and your negate loses a lot of value. You can negate a Lightning Strike, but that's generally not very purposeful.
Chupacabra shoots down Soulscar Mage, and Jake abrades away the Chupacabra. So it's successfully 2-for-1s here. However, Jake gets to make a Bomat Courier, put a card under it. 1 card under Courier, Jake only has 1 card in his hand, and it's a Mountain. So he's very quickly going to convert this into more resource.
Yeah, the card's already good.
Yep.
And if James doesn't have an answer quickly, it only gets better.
James draws land 5. He'd love to see the Scarab God. It looks like 4 cards in hand. He's got Negate up. We'll see where he's at. Is this Scarab God? It is. And a great finisher here against Mono Red. With a Chupacabra in the graveyard, this feels like do or die territory already for Jake.
That second Mountain in hand isn't going to do.
No, not at all.
Yeah, getting back that Chupacabra, dealing with one of these creatures, having formidable blockers. And with 12 life to play with, James seems to be in pretty good shape with that Scarab God.
I have to agree. Jake hoping to... We'd have to almost get a card under Courier and turn it into a Fight with Fire, and that would only even keep him alive. It wouldn't solve anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Fight with Fire would only push the Scarab God back a turn.
Yeah. Wouldn't maybe a Hazoret. I don't know. With James at 12, it's very difficult to see how he's going to get out of this. It looks like James actually took the hit off Bomat Courier.
I suppose the concern would be if you...
Chandra'd?
Yeah, blocked and then Chandra happened. But even that, you deal with the Bomat Courier, you get your Scarab God back. That wouldn't even be the worst exchange.
I don't mind too much. James draws here. He has both Vraska's Contempt in hand and the possibility of getting back Chupacabra. So you see passes now with Scarab God mana up. And things are just going to be tough. Another land also drawn for Jake.
Yeah, those are not helping at all.
Last turn, he actually skipped his land drop as a bluff. With Kenra in play and Bomat Courier, that feels like it's got some fancy play syndrome to it.
Yeah, I don't think you accomplish anything. And especially in this matchup, the blue-black player's hand is pretty forced. They have to kill your creatures when they can.
3rd card under Bomat Courier. James lets that happen so he can keep Scarab God around. On-Crop Crasher, Soulscar Mage, picked up for Jake. And Karizev, so a big 3 cards. However, Scarab God's going to go to work.
Presumably we start with the Chupacabra.
Sounds good to me. Make a 4/4. Destroy a creature. Thinking we're going to see Karizev go down here.
That would be my guess.
Yeah, hitting the bin, it's the biggest attacker. Almost anything could be fine, actually, however.
You can go for Soulscar Mage, too. That one can make things a little bit awkward. I suppose there's enough food for the Scarab God where shrinking it doesn't matter because it's going to make a bunch more 4/4s.
Yeah. Carry Zev will be the one that he shoots.
I'd consider bringing back that carry Zev in the upkeep.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Now, I think James is going to go another way. Because he has negate in hand, I think he's going to try to leave up that negate. He's got negate and Vraska's Contempt. So while there is extra damage there, he's just going to leave his mana and play on Jake's end step.
Yeah, pretty reasonable.
Even now, I'm not sure we're going to see any attacks from James.
Yeah, he's playing very conservatively. Yeah, it makes sense. You don't really want to take any damage. You don't have to. Though at a point, you don't want to just leave damage on the table.
Champion of Wits. 2 Vraska's Contempts in hand. James just has an embarrassment of riches right now, as he'll actually attack with the Scarab God. Or make that the Chupacabra. And, Jake can't reasonably block here. I think James gets to dictate the speed of the race.
Yep.
Jake's down to 16.
The other reasonable thing about not activating the Scarab God in the upkeep is you have your mana up. If the Kenra goes to the graveyard for whatever reason, you can just grab that one, so Jake will never be able to eternalize it.
Yeah, if he'd upkeeped it, then Jake might have blocked with Kenra here.
Yeah.
All right, Jake at 15. Correction here on our life totals. Champion play from James. This one's a little more peculiar for me. James's hand is very good. Discards another champion, and now he has negate, contempt, land. See what he wants to ditch as the second one. He ditches Vraska's Contempt. That's so demoralizing.
You are not happy to see that on the other side of the table.
Yeah, now Ryan, this is actually a spot where I don't I think like James, once he committed to leaving up Vraska's Contempt, I wanted to see him stick to it. With a good on-crop Crasher here, James might be in some trouble. Like on-crop Crasher Shock could potentially get him.
Yeah, we could come across for something like 7 damage. And
yeah.
Potentially a Glorybringer could clean up from there.
It looks... Jake's hand has 2 on-crop Crashers in it. Now, because of that land slow roll earlier, he only has 5 mana instead of 6, so he's a bit limited from that play.
He is definitely paying for that fancy play.
Swings all 3, he'll exert so the Scarab God may not block. Champion of Wits can still block, and I imagine James will do that.
Yeah.
Do you have...
From there, you'd have 2 champions in the graveyard. You can start Scarab Godding those back.
Despite the fact that it exerted, he'll still block on-crop Crasher. Decides to take the play that keeps his life total the highest. He'll go to 8. So you go back over to James.
And 8's still a pretty safe life total. Takes at
Right.
least 3 burn spells to do that much.
Looks like he might have a Gifted Aetherborn on top. If that's the case, I'm all for keeping it.
Yeah, just gaining some life makes this game very easy.
Well, he can leave up the 6 mana.
Yes.
So it's very nice here.
Yeah, it fits perfectly with the mana. If it connects a couple times or it gets to block, you don't really have to worry about too much.
Full swing here from James. And Jake will, he'll take the damage. Jake takes 9, drops to 5. This is risky from James. He'll make Gifted Aetherborn. He has Vraska's Contempt up, so he's at a virtual 10. He's probably okay. Land from Jake isn't going to do it.
Yeah, against a 1-card hand there. I mean, this is the most aggressive attack we've seen James make this game, but he's pretty well insulated here.
Without the Vraska's Contempt, he may have lost to Glorybringer.
Sure.
Now, granted, if he doesn't have Contempt, he probably doesn't make
I
this
assume
line.
that, the turn probably looks a little bit different, especially given the way that James has played up to this point.
And on Jake's side, you know there's a Contempt there. Because James looted away a Contempt earlier, the only way that makes sense is if James had 2. That card's way too valuable to loot away your only copy.
Gains life, exiles, yeah.
And Jake can't do it. He'll pick up the cards, and now it's 1 game apiece. Each time we've had each player on 6, but for game 3, Jake's going to get his first chance on the play.
Yeah, that is a big deal for Mono Red.
All right, we'll be back for that game in just over a minute. Well, welcome back. Game 3. This is going to decide which player enters tomorrow at 8-0. Looking to be one of the only 8-0, possibly one of 2 8-0 players. Both games, each player's been on 6. This might be our first time on the 7 with 7s on each side. Does that more cards? You figure that's better for the red deck?
In general, probably. The thing about it, the blue-black mid-range deck, it needs to hit more land drops. So mulligans for both players for that reason. Not the worst for the mono-red aggro deck. Though James does have a number of higher impact cards on 2. I think Gifted Aetherborn. Just the fact that it demands some specific stuff and only costs 2. Certainly post-sideboard when he has access to 4. Puts a lot more pressure on Jake's hands. But looks like we will not have a 7-card hand.
Not for Jake. All 3 of them were 6s. Now, one of the 6s he won with. But especially in a post-board situation where your opponent's on higher removal counts, you hate to start out down 2 cards like Jake's going to do.
It's one of those spots where you hope that they kept a bad one.
Well, I mean, think about those games. Each game we've seen a turn 1 Bomat Courier from Jake, but the Fatal Push has been at the ready.
Yep. It generally does have to be Fatal Push when James is on the draw.
Yeah, cast down's not even going to be quick enough.
Yeah.
Or Gifted Aetherborn on the draw, if that's James' only answer. Jake still gets 3 cards under the Courier before it pops.
Right.
He's kept. 6 is manageable. Sometimes even with a red deck, 6 just means your Hazoret's better.
That is true. It can attack a turn earlier sometimes. I've definitely played a good number of games with decks with the same mixture that James is bringing to the table. Fatal Push, Gifted Aetherborn, Vraska's Contempt, and it feels like I have so many good cards, and I still lose game to red.
I mean, here's a test. I was going to say turn 1 Bomat Courier does have the Fatal Push, and as I start saying it, James, turn 1 draws Fatal Push.
Not too bad.
And it's specifically the card Fatal Push is, I think, why we're seeing this black mid-range deck and why we're seeing Control switch over to Esper. Remember, this card's a mainstay of Modern for a reason. Another Bomat Courier was possible for Jake. He had a different play. He says go. Ryan, what happened there?
I'm not really sure. I don't know if he's leaving up like an Abrade for an Aetherborn or something like that. That seems a little wacky compared to just playing the Bomat Courier.
Yeah, and it might have been he's moving fast. However, he's going to pay for that. Gifted Aetherborn here from James. So now he has the blocker for the Courier. And when James untaps, he has a cast down. I like where he's at.
Yeah, and Jake wasn't even leaving up Abrade. That Aetherborn's sticking around.
Yeah, I think he must have missed it. However, even when you miss things and you mulligan, Goblin Chainwhirler's still a heck of a Magic card. Here it is. See if it can do some carrying for him.
The first strike lines up quite well with the Aetherborn.
Yeah. But what Black Blue's going to do here, he's got some removal, and I think he can line them up. It looks right now like James has cast down, and he has Vraska's Contempt for the Chandra in Jake's hand. If he can just answer cards, you know, if Jake curves out on threats 1, 2, 3, 4, and James curves out on a removal 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to, and then he hits this 5, Scarab God. That's going to do it.
Yeah, also in the meantime, the Aetherborn is connecting.
And he's gaining life.
Yep, that makes it that much harder.
Here's Bomat from Jake. He had a Chandra, but missed the land drop. Swings in, card under, James to 19. Not a problem, though, because Aetherborn has been refueling that life total. Another gifted Aetherborn picked up for James.
Yikes.
Like everything about what's happening here.
Yeah, one, if you can answer it within a couple of turns, that's fine. They gain some life. Your bigger cards start to overwhelm it. But once there's two, and certainly if the two start engaging in combat every turn, the game really slips away.
Yeah, Johnston up to 21 on this attack. His hand, he's got another Aetherborn, another Fatal Push, and a Vraska's Contempt. I don't even care what the other card is. I don't know if Jake can beat that.
Yeah, with that fourth land drop there, doesn't really matter. Given that he's leaving up some mana, I would expect a counterspell overcasting the Aetherborn. It looks like Negate is available. So that would cover a Chandra on this turn.
And James has reached again for the Negate post sideboard. So, and this time he's rewarded. If Jake hits that removal spell, it's going to work out. Swing before with trigger on the stack. Bomat Courier will be Fatal Pushed again. Jake hit land 4. He'll go for Chandra, and there's the Negate. James has him covered at all places. He still has the Vraska's Contempt in hand.
Yep. Thing is going very well for Johnston here.
Hits over. Land 5, Contempt and Aetherborn is what James is sitting on. The land might have cycling, in which case I think we'd see James cycle it.
Well, you'd be wrong.
I'm wrong. All right.
You do ultimately want that fifth land for the Scarab God. Because this one cycles and you don't have a Scarab God yet, I'm kind of with you. Aetherborn plus cycle the land seems like a pretty good turn to me.
Glory, and you know, James played this really well. He had a gifted Aetherborn he could have cast. However, he instead left up Vraska's Contempt, and look how hard he was rewarded by doing that. Tabbing out for Aetherborn would have been so much worse here.
Yeah.
Nice play. Exile. James's life total just keeps going up. Aether Hub, Aetherborn. At this point, James is out of resources, but so is his opponent. It's going to be a top deck war. I suppose if, you know, some Hazoret into Glorybringer off Jake could do it. Big hits into more big hits. He's got Hazoret, it looks like. Picks up Earthshaker Kenra.
Unfortunately, the mana does not quite allow him to leverage both. And now with two Aetherborns, it's hard to do much with Hazoret.
Yeah, I mean, it stops James's attacks.
Yep.
But we're just on this clock. We see Hazoret from Jake. Hazoret can't swing because you're not winning the race. If you hold back Hazoret, what's going to happen is James will either... Well, he'll attack. He'll put James under 22, and James is fine with that.
Yeah.
If you just were to hold back the Hazoret, the problem is James eventually will either draw a Contempt or a Scarab God. And the moment he does, you're losing again.
Yep. Taking a hit from Hazoret and still being above 20 is a really good position.
I'm not sure you want to race Hazoret against 4 points of lifelink.
Yeah. I mean, you're cracking for 5, and you're getting cracked back for an 8-point life swing.
Yeah, you're trading 1 damage for 4. And a pass by James. Draw. Land 6 and Earthshaker Kenra. Kenra's pretty medium here. We're still in a spot where Jake can't really push damage.
Yep.
Hazoret was the first step. What I think Jake needs to see is now he needs to wait until he top decks a Glorybringer. If he does, then he can actually start going to work.
Yeah, exerting down these Aetherborns, that would be very significant.
It'd be slow, and like I said, we're still one Contemptor Scarab God from none of that mattering. It's not a great place.
Another Chandra would be pretty good.
Yeah.
You can pick off an Aetherborn, then block for it while it resets, draw some extra cards.
Kenra pass from Jake. Makes sense. Kenra swing. Oh, you gotta... Ryan, he's gotta stop swinging these. He's gonna swing himself to death.
He's on a 2-turn clock already.
He's got James down to... He's not making any inroads.
James is at 19.
19.
That
he's going to be back to
23.
23. For right, hold on. Hold on. The number's about to move again.
Oh, that's how this works.
Wait.
That,
No.
That number is
That's
higher
why we
than
know.
20.
That's why this is not the line.
Yeah, this is a really rough spot for Jake.
He needs board control. That's the
Yeah.
thing. So you might see him discard a land here, and he's doing that. But at this point, I just want to play the land. Like, you got to play the mid-range game here.
Well, the 2 damage doesn't matter.
Right. And, 6 mana might. I mean, probably doesn't. Maybe you board in the Fight with Fire and you work Group up to 9. That's probably not real.
That doesn't do enough damage.
At least it kills the Aetherborns.
It does do that.
Yeah, they're probably not even in. At this point, Jake has to stop attacking.
Yes. Well, I mean, he'll just die on the crack path.
He doesn't.
So.
Don't tell. Yeah, I shouldn't tell people what they have to do.
That's true. He's an adult and he's going to make his own choices.
This choice, however, I think there's a good choice and a bad choice here. A Braid takes care of one of.
All right, that's actually a pretty reasonable draw there.
That means we can swing the team again.
Not the team. Not the team.
We could.
All
we
right.
can. It's not lethal anymore, Ryan. Swing.
That's true. Just the Kenra, though, I like that.
Yeah, I do like that. That was free damage. Take it. If it's a contempt on the top of the deck, you're gonna lose anyway. It doesn't matter. It's not a contempt. If here's champion, maybe he's gonna find one. Looks like he found Cast Down and another Gifted Aetherborn.
It's named a land that will certainly be pitched.
But this is where blue-black's just gonna be great. You can't swing any. So if I'm James next turn, you know what I'm doing? I'm attacking with champion. Yep. Your call. You can pick how this story ends.
Would you like to lose the game, or would you like me to draw 4 cards and then you lose the game?
Discards the Aetherborn and the land, keeps the Cast Down.
I'd be inclined to keep the Aetherborn, seeing as Cast Down doesn't do anything about Hazoret. But
top deck's a Glorybringer.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, it covers Glorybringer is the thing that it does.
Jake drawing a mountain, no play here. Nothing he can do. Just has to pass back. Jake's always been on some pretty slim outs here. And they're about to get slimmer next turn. Over to James. And he just drew the Vraska's Contempt, right? He doesn't even need to loot for it. I liked the swing of the champion, but if he drew Contempt, I like casting that even more.
Yeah, Contempt Hazoret attack with both.
Yeah. Here we go. Take care of your god. Go up to 21. Jake will... All right, stay at 19. Hazoret's still gone. Make a lethal swing. Actually, how about this? Cast down the blocker and move to 8-0. That's a nicer line. James Johnston, black-blue mid-range. He moves into first place with the win. Jace, undefeated on the day.